1973's The Letters is a TV movie with an unusual structure that works. It starts with a postman who's breaking the fourth wall. He tells us that even though letters always get where they're going, because it's a little bit of post office propaganda here, he's going to set up the stories of three different groups of people who had mailed a letter, but it didn't get there till a year later. And when it gets there, it changes their lives. And he doesn't tell us why the letters were delayed. The first story stars John Forsythe and Jane Powell as a married couple. She's taking him to the airport for yet another business trip. He's going to Mexico, and she tells him something strange. She says that whenever she leaves him, she tries to prepare herself for the event that he doesn't come back. And what would she do? And she feels like everything in her life is something that she sort of has a tenuous grasp on. And she's not wrong, because he's running around with none other than Miss Scarlett, who is Leslie Ann Warren, who's billed here as Leslie Warren. And so he writes his long-suffering wife a letter telling her that he's leaving her, but then he decides not to send it. And the fate of the letter is left with the mistress. And then we move on to the next story. This one is pretty dramatic. It has Leslie Nielsen. Before he was really famous, he always played in dramatic roles, and he often played jerks. And he was a brilliant concert pianist who couldn't get funding for a tour. And he was going with Dina Merrill, and they were supposedly in love, but he's a gold digger. And her sister, Miss Barbara Stanwyck, swans into the plot, and she steals Leslie Nielsen away very blatantly, just buys him off her sister because she has more money. But then at the end of that segment, we see that Barbara Stanwyck has mailed Dina Merrill a letter, and we don't know what's in the letter. Finally, there's Queen of the B movies, Ida Lupino, and former Scream Queen Pamela Franklin as a mother and daughter that are fighting because Pamela Franklin is in love with TV's Ben Murphy, and she's too young, and her mother wants to keep them apart. And anyway, he's on the run from a crime that he committed accidentally. And then we find out why all the letters were delayed, and then we get the explanations 1, 2, 3 for the stories of how the people's lives were changed. And I'm not going to spoil everything, but I will say to you that the third segment with the mother and daughter had the most satisfying resolution. The first segment with the husband and wife, you can understand why the people made the choices that they did because of the time that they were living in. But part 2, just as it was set up, was bonkers. It was making decisions that I still don't understand why a person would choose to do what they did. It's very messy. If you watch this movie, let me know in the comments why part 2 worked out as it did. And this episode of Erin's Telefilm Talk is signed, sealed, and delivered. See you next time.